Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Patrick Bevan has two companies, EvanAll, which helps manufacturers with sustainability, and ChangeAlchemy, which helps smaller businesses with their strategy. He's on the lookout for new networks to join, so if you can help him out, then do get in touch with him. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Patrick.
My pleasure, Liz.
Now, you describe yourself as being an accidental entrepreneur, which I love that description, and I think quite a few of us probably are, to be honest. But your background is in the financial world, so take me back to the start of your career. What was your first job out of school, and what did you want to be?
That's a very good and quite challenging question, actually. I always wanted to be a doctor, but I had a tough time at school, which we won't go over here, and I literally failed it. And it's strange that I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, because as you asked that question, I actually realised I accidentally got into finance.
Right.
After struggling with school, I had a lucky break when I was kind of 21 or so, and I managed to get this job through a friend in a start-up finance company in London. And I packed my little bag onto a stick and came down from Hull. I think it was 1992. It was 28th of September. I've still got the National Express bus tickets. 1992, and I was thrown into the middle of the city, and I didn't know what the city was then. And I was surrounded by some of the most brilliant people I've worked with in my career without realising it. And we built what was a small fund management company in computing. Before we had tech startups and stuff.
Yeah.
We were one of the originals, and I relished it. I loved the problem solving, and it got me into the finance world. I did rather well from there, actually, but I wouldn't say anything from that point was ever deliberate in my career. It was, okay, I've done that, I enjoyed that, I enjoyed the problem solving, but I don't know what I am. Then I had a stint as a broker in New York.
Yeah.
In the towers next to the two towers that came down suddenly, but I was there when they were still there.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating in that it taught me that the closer you get to money, the more difficult, let's say, the people are. And I didn't want that. And that showed me that taught me more about what I wasn't.
Yeah.
And where I wanted to be. And I came back to London, and then I started working in banks and running projects and programs. And my CV looks fantastic. You know, I worked for probably the biggest investment bank at the time, running some of the biggest projects at the time. But it wasn't really fulfilling me, if I'm honest. It paid for the house I'm in. It paid, to bring up the kids. It did a great job, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. And how long did you do that for?
I think I was with HSBC for about 11 years.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of that time dreading losing my job, because we had to keep the roof over our heads. Again, it looks great from the outside if you read my CV, but at the time it wasn't me. And they made me redundant, which, considering it was something I dreaded, it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And so what happened after HSBC?
I think that was the first time I showed my real resilience, and I started to believe in myself about what my abilities were. And I went to Deloitte, which is consulting, and I became a consultant in the risk practice. But what I think back to on Deloitte, and I was there for 8 years, and I left 2022, it really plays to the entrepreneurial spirit in people. You do as well as you want to do. You aren't stuck in a box. You go and find where you fit. And I kind of had two lives there. The first life was helping banks with big, ugly market risk projects. But the second life was fixing internals at Deloitte and building efficiency projects and running transformation programs for them internally. And it really got me to understand where my skills are properly, to the extent, actually, that after running this for a while and kind of going through COVID, I thought, I've got to go and do it for myself. I've got to go and have fun. And it's funny thinking back. And another thing that happened during this time, which it is actually, I think it's Neurodiversity Week, so I can say this, but I got diagnosed with ADHD in that time, which helped me track back a lot of the things that actually, a lot of the times I thought I wasn't very good at my job or I was struggling. Well, that was ADHD. I was just kind of in the wrong room. I'm very good at some things which other people aren't.
Yeah.
So let's play to that.
Yeah.
So all this came together through COVID with also having purple and blue Mohicans half the time and getting tattoos, which as a little boy from Hull I'd never have dared do. A lot changed.
Yeah. So post-COVID then, what happened next?
I set out my little stall. I think it was September 2022, and I was going to become an independent business partner. I was kind of an executive coach type thing, and I mistakenly believed that there weren't any other people out there doing coaching, particularly the way I did it, and had quite a surprise when I got out into the real world. And I've been, it's not pivoting, I've been finding my way since, and it's challenging. What are we, 2.5 years in? But I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
It's challenging in a different way, but I've never been happier. Lots of things have happened aside. So I don't drink anymore, but I kind of think back. I always drank, but I don't. I'm not as nervous as I was. I might have to go and get a job one day, and that's probably my biggest terror now. That I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying finding where I fit and where I can help people, because that's one of my core, I know that's a core value for me, is helping people.
Yeah.
And it's finding where to place that.
Yeah. So what direction is your business going in at the moment?
2. I'm taking advantage of what everyone's calling this kind of fractional working way, and actually I have the ChangeAlchemy business, which is effectively me coming and helping businesses with strategic direction and execution. And what I know from back in Deloitte, where I used to run strategies, is people have a strategy or they have execution, but rarely do they have the two together, and rarely does it work. And that's what I bring. I've got this high level view, I'm a good problem solver, and I bring new ideas to people as well. So that's the ChangeAlchemy side, which I get a lot of joy out of. But I have what I call my post-it one, which is the EvanAll, which is the sustainability business I've been setting up over the last year. And that's a very exciting one. They're both exciting. There's a very exciting one, though, that I'm working with this guy, Professor Steve Evans, who's been doing sustainability in manufacturing at Cambridge University for, God knows, he's been doing this for 30 odd years. So he knows what works and what doesn't. He also knows that manufacturers don't know what works and what doesn't, and what actually works is not spending money but using your brains and being better at it.
Yeah.
So I call it my post-it note, because since I got to know Steve, I can't get rid of it. It's like it's stuck to my fingers. I have to do something with it. It really ties in with the efficiency programs I put in place at Deloitte that saved money. We're trying to build that in a way that we can take it to as many manufacturers as possible, because the ones he's worked with are great. I won't mention the names, but they're all the sort of big names you'd imagine Cambridge University working with.
Yeah.
And they've all done well out of having that kind of strategy. But what we want to do is see if we can get it to the masses in a smaller way that is scalable.
Yeah.
So it's the same core thing of how can I help people? How can I bring strategic change? And it's strategic and cultural change, really.
Yeah. So how did you get into that? How did you start collaborating with Cambridge University?
Pure chance. Well, I say chance. It's being out of the corporate world and being able to say yes and meeting people, whether it be on... I met somebody I thought, if I'm going to be a coach, I'll get trained to be a coach. If I'm arrogant, I'll say I didn't learn anything, but I did get a certificate. But I met a guy called Pete who introduced me to a couple of guys at Cambridge, who introduced me to Steve, who is the expert in this area. And before I knew it, I think the key was I saw Steve's frustration that manufacturers weren't doing what needed to be done. And what I brought to it was I worked out how we can systematize it, I think is the word, and how we can actually turn it into a product and start taking it out. And that's where we are. So it's that's kind of what I bring to it, but it's the kind of the ability to meet somebody,
Yeah.
and just say yes and follow my heart, really.
Yeah. Oh, the power of networking.
Exactly.
So the businesses that you're helping, are they global or are they just in this country?
for EvanAll, we're kind of working on businesses in this country. Some have got international arms. They're not tiny manufacturers. On the ChangeAlchemy side, it's much smaller businesses. It's startup and up. I've helped quite a few startups. Generally, that's where the fun is, where people are scratching their heads, where they're thinking they're good at whatever it is that they do, but they're not necessarily good at strategy and execution. So that's what I bring.
Yeah, yeah. And so where do you find the people to work with, or do they come to you?
That, I'll be honest, has been a struggle. I was very lucky in the early days because I just seemed to bump into people, and I've still got some of those clients, and that's good. But I will be honest, we're talking networking. I've struggled to really get to grips with networking, where I think that I've had a couple of successes through networking, but generally I seem to be in a room of people trying to sell almost the same thing as me, who want to boil me down to, oh, you're a coach, which I do find incredibly frustrating. But I'm not giving up. I'm still trying to find how this can work, because I sometimes find networking and selling quite grubby. It feels quite awkward. But I've got to realise that I've got to brave through that. There's some kind of imposter syndrome in there, but I've got to get through that, because I know that once I can build a trusting relationship with somebody, I can help. And I'm only interested in helping where there is actually help to be had.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of results are your clients getting from your help?
I was thinking about that before. How much? So there's one particular big client that I can't really talk about because they're going through a lot of change. But what I think he's key, and I'm seeing him just after this, but I'm helping somebody who couldn't do change, or found change very difficult, let's say, and I'm clarifying it and making it less scary and making it into steps that are manageable. So that, I won't say where that company's going, but it's good for the company. It's growth. It is definitely growth. So that's probably one way of saying it. I've taken it from just cracking on to actual growth.
Yeah.
Others, particular startup in the neurodiverse space, they set out with a very strong business model that hasn't worked out how they intended, but I've been there along the way to kind of help keep changing that strategy, because strategy, yes, you should have a fixed strategy, but you should also be flexible. You should know when to pivot or when to go back. So I've helped on that road, and that's now kind of going up another path, and it's being successful where it hadn't thought that's where it would be.
Yeah, yeah. How were you finding that self-employment compares to going out to work every day?
I'm loving. I miss the buzz. That's the thing I do miss. I miss the Friday night beer. Aside from not drinking, I miss the whole the team aspect of, right, we've done it. Let's go and celebrate. But that's a small thing. I'm finding my own way, and I'm finding my own tribe, if you like. And yes, through networking, I am finding some good friends who we're all sticking together, and we're finding ways of kind of building that team feeling that you don't get, that you had in work. I'm not missing the early morning train. I do go into London quite a lot, but I don't get the commuter train. I go in when I want.
Yeah.
But generally, I've never been happier, which is weird, because I used to get a large amount of money in the bank every month, even if I did nothing. Maybe money's not important, but don't tell anyone that.
So the networking then, is growing your network something that you are now sort of deliberately putting some energy into? I
am, because I think what I've realised is I didn't focus on it in the correct way for ChangeAlchemy. The last 6 months to a year have been all about building EvanAll, but EvanAll doesn't need my face.
Yeah.
And EvanAll doesn't need 100% of my time. And I genuinely enjoy, I'm nosy, I'm inquisitive, I love getting into people's problems and bringing that extra magic of, like, I've got an idea that could help you that they won't have seen. And I'm putting myself out there in that kind of imposter syndrome zone of, let's go find these customers, let's find a way to find people who might not know they need my help, but once they get to know me, they'll appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how are you going about that? What kind of networks are you going to?
I would love some advice, but I'm starting again. I'd avoided the local one, which is Surrey. There are a few that I've been to before, but they tend to be almost too level. They're not too low level. They're not the people that would appreciate my help. So I'm searching for new networks as of now. I'm looking around, and actually one of your podcasts I was listening to is like how podcasting is a good networking tool. So that's something I'm exploring, because I think my work isn't as simple as come and have a haircut. It's building trust, and once the trust is there, I can really help people.
Yeah.
So it's getting myself out there in a way that people can see, oh, he's a nice guy and he's trustworthy.
Yeah.
And obviously, as an insecure ADHDer of old, that's the last thing I think of myself, but it's true.
Yeah. So when you meet people at networking meetings and they ask you what you do, or what you can help with, what do you tell them?
I focus on strategy. I've learnt not to say I'm a coach, because and I'm not doing coaches down at all. I do a lot of coaching, but that isn't my core offering. Coaching is one of the tools in my toolbox, which I use to get to the heart of what a business owner wants. That's important, but I'm being clear on the fact that I help at that strategic level. Because there are people that help with marketing, there are people that help with direct sales, but no, I'm the strategic guy. I'll help shape a business model, or reshape a business model, or rescue a business model, but it's strategy.
Yeah. And so you say you're looking for new networks to join. Do you want them to be local to you? Are you looking for online networks that might be sort of further afield? Tell us what you're after.
Bit of both. Local, because I love going for coffee. I genuinely love spending time with people. I'm a people person, and I do every now and then let people talk. Actually, I'm pretty good at that, surprisingly. But online, I think I do have a couple of clients that I only ever met online. It works, but I think it's where I can find the challenge. So I'm not locking myself down saying you have to be within walking distance. If it's online, that's fine.
Okay. So if anyone listening has got a network they would love to be a part of, or if listeners are looking for your help, what is the best place for them to find you?
The best place is my ChangeAlchemy website. So that is changealchemy.co.uk. They can also go to my EvanAll website, but that really is more for down the kind of the manufacturer side, which we are set up in other ways for that. So ChangeAlchemy, please.
And you're on LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn as well. Feel free to connect to me there. Send me a message. I do respond. I know plenty that don't, as we all do, but I do.
So your website or LinkedIn if people want to get in touch with you. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest, and the best of luck with your with ChangeAlchemy, EvanAll, and of course your networking.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.